Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of It's a Sure Thing, the conscious collective community platform where we have guest speakers from all over the world share their stories and their passion and how they are making a difference in the world by being their authentic selves. So tonight we've got an amazing man who I haven't seen for quite a number of years. It was 15 years ago, actually, when I had a reading with him. He is an international psychic medium. He has travelled the world and has also in the past done lots of events and mediumship shows and meditations and lots of different things. He's come over to Adelaide to do those things, which is where I met him. And he's originally from the UK, from Staffordshire, and he's now in Noosa in Queensland, living his best life. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the show this evening, if you're calling from or watching from Australia, Clive Whitby. Hello, Clive. How are you?
Hello, Sue. It's been a long time.
It has been a long time, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. And to see that you're doing really well, and you've just celebrated an amazing milestone birthday.
That's true. Yes.
And you still look the same as you did 15 years ago.
If only. You're only charming me now, Sue.
Oh dear. So Clive, now let us know, when did you arrive in Australia? What made you come to Australia?
1991. I arrived on the day of the first Iraq War.
Oh, okay.
I took off from Heathrow, and the airport was surrounded by army personnel. I remember it vividly. I came over for the offer of two jobs. I was a teacher in my previous life, and I got experience and qualifications that Australia needed at the time. So I came over in a very quick way because Australia needed me. So I got a visa within 3 months. So I had interviews in May. Got my visa by August, and I was here by Christmas. So January 91 was the time I dropped into Sydney, and it was 40 degrees. So I left at -7, and it was sleeting. And I got into Sydney and it was 40 degrees, and it stayed 40 degrees for a few days, well, a few weeks, in fact. So that was my first impression of Australia. And I have a first cousin here, so she lives in Sydney, so they were able to meet me at the airport, even though I'd never met them before. So I came completely without knowing anything or with anybody. So it was a surprise when I arrived in Sydney.
Yeah.
So I taught then for about 2 years in a special school in Liverpool, in Sydney, which is probably the hottest place in that part of the world. And it took me 2 years to just get through the shock of the heat and the climate and the people, but found my way through that and eventually got out of teaching and started my own business in a shop in Foster, Tuncurry, in New South Wales. Anybody coming from Foster or New South Wales, put their hand up, because I may have met you because it was such a small town and everybody knew everybody. So I had a shop which was like an alternative lifestyle store, and that led me into, let's say, more full-time psychic work. And I was also a clinical hypnotherapist at the time. So I started off very slowly, but the shop grew very fast because there was a great need in that part of the world. And over the next 9 years, it got exhausting because it became 24/7, not only dealing with the customers in the shop, but also seeing all the clients and all the people that wanted readings and hypnosis. So I was really busy and started to acquire people from all over Australia. They came to Foster just to see me, which was a surprise. But then I remember one day a lady came in from Denmark and she said, "I've come all the way from Denmark to see you. I heard about you." And she heard about me when she visited New York. this is a true story. She went to New York, and she met somebody in New York that obviously I'd spoken to 2 years before, and she said, "Oh, yeah, go and see Clive in Australia." Yes, okay, I'll catch the plane. So she went back home to Denmark, and then she told me the story of how she got to see me, and we've stayed in client touch ever since, off and on. So I speak to her maybe every 3 years now over Skype or Zoom now, which is what we use. And what else did I say? Yeah, the shop went from strength to strength. And then, of course, the landlords wanted to increase the rent, but also not give us another lease. So that was the time to come to Noosa. So we had to close the shop, unfortunately, but I still had my skills, and I was doing meditation sessions twice a week with groups of 6 to 8 people. And I was also visiting Sydney and Melbourne and what's the other place? Brisbane, yes, just up the road. And did a few mind, body, spirit festivals, which became a source of advertising. And I met a lot of people. And I also went to Adelaide 2 or 3 times, which is where I met you. And
it is.
That's right. And I think you were a student of mine at one point. And weren't you? You were. Did you student with me?
To do some training.
Something. Yeah.
Oh.
I remember you in the class giving me heaps of questions.
I think it was a couple of meditations you did at Rosalind's at Nurturing Humanity. There was some meditation groups with Sam and a few other people. Yeah. And I was really, really inquisitive because I'd not really meditated before. Well, so
it was good to see. It's good to see how far you've come since then and how far I've come, of course. But it's good to see because I'm still in touch with a few people from Adelaide, and they all seem to have continued their development. I mean, Sam is obviously, she's gone on to doing other things, and you've gone on to building your business and doing what you're doing now, which is a great thing to for the community as well as for all our people, so to speak, our tribe. And our tribe has stuck together, strangely enough, through thick and thin. And even though it's been 15 years since I last saw you, were you pregnant then? Or were you just
I think I've just had Nathan. I just had my baby. Yeah.
So all the viewers, it had nothing to do with me, but Sue had a baby at the time, and that was 15 years ago, and now he's 15 years old.
Yep. There you go. That's psychic at its best. Oh dear. No, and back in the day, back then, you actually had a tape recorder. And I've got the tape of you on the tape recorder. Anyway, but no, it was really, really fascinating to have that reading with you. And you also did a few workshops over here that Rosalind ran at the Glenelg North Community Centre, which I'm now running meditations at, funnily enough. But anyway,
So it's great to see how far you've come, Sue. So You've developed yourself along the way, and of course, if your development has been like my development, then it's been you just go from one day to the next, and the week next, and then the year, and then something else, and then something else happens, and then you pointed in a different direction, and another direction comes up. So that's basically how I've lived my life. Is just followed the feeling, or followed, I would say, a spiritual pathway, even though I wasn't completely aware of my spiritual pathway when I first started this work in 1987. I just fell into it it was a bit like mistakes, but I'd already started because when I look back, I'd already started to see my father, who had passed 10 years previously, come into my living room almost every night and say this or say that. And he spoke to me more when he was dead than he was when he was alive. It was a quiet It's true. This is a true story. I used to see him, and at that point in time, I never used to say anything to anybody. I just thought that everybody could do this. Everybody could see their deceased relatives, so to speak. And I just got on with it. And then I understood exactly what he was talking about, because I didn't really know what he was planning for me, because there was a plan in place, and I was just going, well, all right, I'll do that, and I'll do this, and I'll see what happens. And then all of a sudden I realized what it was all about. So there was a huge change in my life in 87. And I understood exactly what he had been talking to me about all that time. I mean, we weren't talking like you and I at this moment in time. And when I say I saw him, I saw an image in my third eye, or wherever you want to say. But he definitely came through as a spiritual being, which really, as I said, our relationship wasn't that great when he was alive. But it became much more distinct when he was gone. And it's been the same with my other relative. What's her name? My mum. Yes, she passed also just after I came to Australia, a year after I came here. So she left, and my relationship with her became really good after I'd got into this work, even though I tried to explain to her what I was doing. Whenever she met a friend in the street, said, well, this is Clive, my son, he does this for a living. And she said, well, it's this, that, and the other. And I'm going, no, it's not, nothing like that. I've explained it to you so many times. I mean, some of your viewers will understand this, that those that are closest to you will find it difficult to completely understand what you're into, because it's not like an engineer of a bridge, or it's not like a manufacturer of cars. This is work that is done in a different place, in a different energy, in a different setting altogether, that even myself and even you, we don't really know what it's all about. We just know there's something there. And of course, when the student is ready, then the teacher comes along. And I found a good teacher at that time to take me forwards, because after I had that impression so many times, I then went and sought a medium out for myself, even though I knew nothing about what they did or how they did it, and I really didn't. And when I look back, I only lived 5 miles up the road from one of the biggest spiritualist churches in the country, in the UK, and I never went. But I did go later. But it's a bit like sometimes being led by the nose, really. Come on, Clive, you've got to just go this way, go this way. So it's following your intuition, really, and trusting it. And trusting that spirit is on your side, and they're not going to throw you over a cliff just yet. But when the time comes, of course, they might lead you to a place where you will make a mistake. And of course, you learn a lot more from your mistakes than you do from the easy passing of life. So where are we going to now, Sue?
Yeah, no. That's all great. That was a really comprehensive bit of background. I didn't know all of those things about you, actually, so that was really enlightening.
That's one thing I find sometimes, that nobody knows. Nobody asks you about yourself, about who you are. And I think this part of the difficulty of this work is it separates you out from yourself, and people they either want to get something from you, or they want to go, he's one of those, and run like hell. And so you have this dichotomy, really, of, well, I just want to be treated as a human being, as I was before 1987, or before I started doing this work. Sometimes it's nice just to have that reality check with yourself and say, well, I used to play a lot of music, and I used to do a lot of this and all of that, and I've been on the radio. But when I went on the radio, in the radio station, I kept myself to myself. I didn't want to do readings it's just not the place to give people messages about their dead relatives, or their baby boy that's just died or whatever. But this is it's a place where I just wanted to enjoy myself and just be myself. So I used to just go and play music until somebody came into the studio and said, I know who you are. You're that man who does readings. And after that, everything changed, and all the people either ran for cover, or there was one or two that got close. So I have one or two good friends, and the other 35,000 people have gone, no, it's not quite like that. But it's that sort of dichotomy as to who am I? You can lose yourself in who you become. Yes. And if you let it just completely overtake you, then right at the beginning of my journey, so to speak, I do remember a story about a lady that just went from one place to another, and she went into Boots the Chemist. For those who come from the UK, there's Boots the Chemist, which is a bit like, I don't know.
Price tag.
Price is right. Something. It's a big place. It's a big concern. And she went in there and started to talk to all the customers and all the representatives about their dead people or their dad or their mother, and basically they did take her away and put her in an ambulance and took her and she went into a psychiatric hospital after that. So that's the extreme, of course. Okay, so you're not going to end up in a psychiatric hospital.
No, but it's interesting how times have changed, Clive. And I think recently, especially with what's been going on over the last 2 years, worldwide, we know what's been going on. And I don't know whether you feel the same, but I feel there's been a massive shift of people really focusing on what they want, what they're prepared to have anymore in their life, what's important to them. And there's a lot more people really searching for something more than just that egocentric stuff now, and calling in spirit, if you like, connecting more. So have you felt the same way? Like there's a lot more respect, if you like, for people who are doing this work, because before it was like either shunned or you were crazy or you were taken away in an ambulance in a straitjacket. But now people are realizing actually there's something to it. I mean, there's been lots of us that have known that for many years, but so
I mean, we've been the ones on the outside trying to get the people on the inside just to listen to us, and that's part of the process, is getting people to listen to us, not just whether we want tea or coffee, but whether there's something a little bit deeper here that you need to consider. And that's what I was talking about earlier on, about understanding me or understanding you at a deeper level, that you're just not Sue. And you just not do this. You're doing a lot more energetically speaking, which is connecting people, which is connecting with a tribe. We keep coming back to that word tribe, don't we? And
yes.
So that's been the process for the last couple of years, especially, I mean, for me, has been a connection with a whole new tribe of people, which are really on the same page as me. And also we've followed the direction more of our intuition rather than what we've been listening to. Because if you listen to this stuff, then it just gives you brain damage. But if you start to listen to what's going inside, the feelings that come up to the surface, then they go, yeah, this is the way forwards. We just need to do this and we just need to do that. And yes, I've found myself and going back to basics. Just basically stripping away, and that's what it's been. It's a bit like stripping away everything that you no longer need in your life. But what you do want in your life is a sense of belief at this time. And we all need to believe in something. And of course, over the last 50 years, then religion in its old self has disappeared. People don't go to church very often. They don't they don't talk about God or the Bible or that. But yes, there's been a strong push towards spirituality. And of course, there's been a strong push towards the work that I do, which is developing people in their own spiritual way, but also getting them to understand that life doesn't end when you're dead. Yes. There is a life afterwards, and we're not supposed to be afraid, and we're not afraid. I'm not scared. That's also a real revelation for a lot of people, that they're not scared about dying now. They're just happy just to get away from the fear that's been spread around us, like peanut butter on a piece of toast, which I used to like, but I don't eat peanut butter anymore because it's too fattening. It doesn't go with the half marathon stuff.
No.
But it's nice. It's nice. But you don't use it anymore. You don't. And so I found myself doing gardening. I've been digging up the garden and planting things. And I've got spinach out the back, and I've got shallots, and I've got tomatoes that grow, self-setting tomatoes everywhere. And it's crazy. But it's been a real pleasure to actually develop a garden, which is really developing yourself, because you get back to that nature. You get back to getting your hands in the earth. And That's where the energy comes out of, actually, because that's where we walk. We walk on the earth, so we get grounded, and we don't have to spend all our time up here, going to psychiatric hospitals, so to speak. It's time to get back. And of course, Alina and I have been spending a lot of time running in the national parks and just under trees, going to see waterfalls, and just getting out into Carnarvon Gorge. If you ever come to Queensland, go to Carnarvon Gorge, which is a magnificent place. But you've probably got all that stuff in South Australia anyway. I mean, you've got mines in South Australia, so we've got rocks and caverns and caves. Of course we've got mines. There's all sorts of mines here, but there's a lot of people here now starting to grasp, let's say, the energy that's starting to be created by people like yourself and people like me that go out into the community and just, have a chat, have a walk, have a laugh, just bring a sense of humor, bring some positivity back into life. Because the day after this crisis, so to speak, was created, I recognized that the joy, it's like a balloon that had been punctured. And the balloon, of course, when you have balloons, they're supposed to bring joy and happiness. And when I noticed the day, it was like 2 days after, or a day or two after, the joy had just left the planet. People had stopped laughing. They're just gone, oh, this is going to be terrible. But we're still here. We're still talking, we're still communicating. And really, at the end of the day, that's what my job is, to communicate and connect with those energies that are floating around, so to speak, but also connect with the energy of the people, so you get a deeper understanding of what they're going through. I mean, only the other day I had a father here whose son had died in his arms. He was only 12 years old, and he only a week before he was talking about his son dying in his arms. I won't say the reason why, but you may be able to gather why. That it was after a medical intervention that he had, and within 2 hours he'd gone. And that's how it was. That's how it came through. And the little boy came through. Really, he didn't know where the hell he was really. So they can get a bit caught up in not expecting to go. So they need to be rescued. So I know that you do a bit of rescue work on the side, and I know there are others around you that do some sort of rescue work. But that's also part of my job, is to try and get the spirit out of the place where they don't need to be, because they don't want to die. They don't want to be there, and they still feel as if they're here. So it's again, it's that dichotomy: am I dead or am I alive? I didn't want to die. I don't want to die. I'm too early, and it's tragic. And my life, since I suppose you could call it 1991, has been dealing with people's grief.
Yeah.
But also, on the other hand, my work has also developed into meeting a lot of lawyers. I don't know whether you ever come across a lot of lawyers, but
I used to work for a lawyer firm.
There you go. So you know all about lawyers. But whenever I go to Hong Kong, which is, I haven't been to Hong Kong, and I'm not sure whether I'll be able to get back there yet. But whenever I go to Hong Kong, I always seem to attract all the lawyers and all the judges. And this is all confidential, so it's just between you and me and all the people that I see on the right-hand side, that I connect with a lot of lawyers. Because lawyers have a job to do, and they have to lie. That's one of the qualifications of a lawyer, I found. Look, not every lawyer lies, but they have to lie. And
well, I'm glad I don't work there anymore, so continue. Yeah.
But this is just my research. This is just working with people, and working. These are real people, but they come as a lawyer, so they come with a badge on. Yes, I'm Mr. And I'm the Supreme Court judge. And I mean, it's incredible how many lawyers that need a psychic to give them permission, or to give them, let's say, reassurance, but you see, that's their humanity. And that's what's happened in the last couple of years, is that people have started to connect with their humanity, which is who they are. And they're a bit scared of who they are because they've always had this role of being a lawyer or a judge or whoever.
Whatever label. Yeah.
Whatever label. And this last 2 years, because they've spent a bit of time on their own or, walking the dog until it sort of gets legless, but it's just that they start to connect with themselves again. And
yes.
they come to me for reassurance to say, is that all right? Is it okay for me to feel this way or to think this way or to... And I don't want to do lawyer anymore. I want to go and do a gardener. I want to go and take trips up Fraser Island in a 4-wheel drive. I want to do something totally different, even though I'm earning thousands and thousands of dollars every week or every month. They realize that's not giving them that feeling of joy or feeling of happiness or a feeling of fun, call it what you like. Because we all look for jobs that are, we all look for jobs in the beginning, I don't know, just to satisfy our parents, I suppose. When I look back on my life, I went into the bank. I was a banker for 2 years, and I went, I don't want to do this for 2 years. So I left, and they were horrified because I'd got a nice secure job that was going to, I would be head of Barclays Bank by now. Well, I'd probably be retired on a huge pension. And of course, that didn't happen. So I went I followed what was right for me. I followed my humanity right back in the 1970s.
Yeah, you were a trailblazer walking on a lonely path, but it's not lonely anymore.
I started to follow my intuition right back in the 1960s, 1970s, when things were a bit strange, but, they're a lot stranger now. But if you follow your intuition, if you trust yourself at this time, then things aren't quite as strange as they might appear. They might look crazy on the outside, but on the inside, people are starting to get together. People are starting to form groups and tribes and those communities that are going to work together to create a better life and a better lifestyle for us all, really. Yeah. It's whether we are able to get through it with all the stuff that comes bombarding at us, and you can't do this and you can't do that. I'm thinking about buying my own plane, just to get out of the but it'll have to travel so many thousands of miles before it can stop. But anyway, the fuel bill will be enormous. But when all this started, I said 2 years ago, I said, look, will I ever see my children again? And that was my biggest concern, is whether my children are 45, by the way, and 41, but I've got 3 grandchildren now. So it's been a struggle, but it has been that sort of, I could have just gone and got everything and got on the plane and done what I'd complied to it all, but I've never been one to fit in. That's the other thing. I've never been one to fit in that. Yeah. And you see, that's where our connection is. Our connection is on a much deeper level than, hello, Sue, how are you? I didn't see you for 15 years. But our connection, even 15 years ago, was at a different level. We never knew it, but it was there, that we were always a bit rebellious, or we're always able to step outside of that norm, so to speak. And at the end of the day, we were only human. And of course, that tribe that we had around Rosalind's place, all those people, and then going to that centre, there's probably about 20 or 30 people that turned up one night, I remember. Yeah. And they were all of the same ilk. I don't know whether they're all still here, but, you might connect with them from time to time and say, oh, yes, I remember you in 1995. Oh, yeah, that was when Clive did that talk, didn't he? Yeah, but now you see... Now I'm into not only personal readings, I'm also doing churches. So that's another development in the last few years. I've always had that connection with churches. I've done churches in London, and I did what they call the Spiritualist Association of Great Britain one night. I just walked in there, and it was volunteer night, and you could do voluntary in one of the the biggest spiritual places in the world. Everybody wants to go there, and I just went, I'll just do it. Let me just have and I had to pay £5, I think, and just to get them to shut up. No, they'd let me in, and I gave them £5, and they let me stand up. And I did the first reading, and I went, this is all right. And I just asked this guy whether I could do another one. He said, yeah, go on, carry on. And so I carried on for another 25 minutes doing a set with connecting with people in the audience. And since I've been in Queensland for the last 2 years, then I've done a lot of churches. I do church meetings, and of course that's also a sad place when some of them are all can't see their faces, and they have to wear a hat. I don't know. Anyway, it's ridiculous that religion, whatever religion is left. I'm only teasing, but I know. But it's just that it's when I asked the audience, and there was an audience of 28 people. I remember one night it was in a little place called Karoi, and we'll keep this between ourselves because this is confidential. And I asked the audience, I said, how many of you actually know anybody that's died of the C word? And nobody didn't. I've had a bit of a cough, I've had a bit of a cold, and then I said, how many of you have actually had any experience of suicide in the last 2 years? And this was like 6 months ago, so this would be over the last 18 months. Yeah. And of course, 12 out of the 28 put their hands up. And these were close relatives and friends. And I felt so bad, really, that there were these people sitting in the audience, and they were already sitting 6 feet apart. And so they couldn't touch each other, and they couldn't hold each other. They couldn't hold each other's hands, and they were talking, or they were thinking about their son or their daughter or their mother or their father that had committed suicide. It sounds a little bit sort of, sorry, everybody, I'm sort of bringing the energy back down again, but this is it's a problem. This is the reality, and this is humanity going through the process of trying to decide whether to stay alive or not. I mean, it comes down to those very, very small, tiny issues, but obviously taking your own life is not a tiny issue. But the last couple of years has shown people connecting with themselves and saying, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. This is crazy. And of course, that's their choice. And I always say, well, suicide, well, if that's the choice, then they'll still go to the place where they need to go to. But, after this last 2 years, I want to spend a couple of days in hell. It'll be good. And singing and dancing.
Oh dear. Well, Clive, we're nearly at the end. Well, we are. We're over time already. Over time, and I haven't even acknowledged anybody yet, but that's okay because it's been really interesting. But I will just quickly say hello, Michelle Gray, because she's come on and said hi. Des also said sounds like Coochie with the people knowing each other. Sadie has said she loves Boots, the chemist. Sadie's from the UK, obviously. She's from Stratford-upon-Avon. Yep, and she's very okay. Who else have we got? Michelle has said connecting with the true essence of universal energy within ourselves. And Nicole Haley, I think she's actually asked a question. Hi, both beautiful people. I'm awaking at the moment and I'm having great and weird things happening. Is it my health or is it spiritual connection? We actually can't answer any of those at the moment, but if you want to know, Nicole, get in touch with Clive direct because he is doing Zoom readings and he's also on the Enlightened Tribe Global Wellness Directory, which is at sushaw.com.au, so you can get that in the link below. Michelle Miller has also said, thanks, Clive and Sue. Michelle, you might remember, it came to a few things that you put on, Clive, as well. So yeah, if anybody wants to see you, they can do that online and they can connect with you through your Facebook page. And for anyone wanting to watch the replay, it's also going to be on the my blog page on my website.
They can also come and see me, by the way.
Yeah, in person, in Noosa.
Yeah, it's not always easy to get to Noosa, but I think the borders are open now, and I think the sky is getting bluer. It is.
So thank you so much for your time. And the airplane's coming as well, isn't it?
It will be on its way. It's an F-45, and it's got its own missiles.
Targeting anyone in particular? That's a whole nother conversation for another day, I think.
Oh, yes, we can have that conversation another time.
So thank you so much, Clive. It's been great listening to you and connecting with you again. I want to watch this all over again and listen to it all. It's there was a lot to take in, and it's great to hear your story and to share your wisdom. So thank you very much for being with us, and thank you everyone for listening in.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Happy